Welcome to Next Generation TV. I'm John Phillips. We're joined in studio today by a gentleman best known for his acting in films such as the Goonies, Rudy, and the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but is now the host of a political discussion podcast called Vox Populi. Welcome, Sean Astin. Thanks so much for stopping by.
John, thanks so much for having me.
All right, so just exactly what is this podcast that you're doing? Can you explain it?
Yeah, it's actually called Vox Populi, Voice of the Occasionally Interested People. And it's basically an opportunity to... The premise of the show is civil discourse. So we have all sides of the political spectrum call in. I seek them out. You know, you pick any of the hot button topics, you know, pro-life, pro-choice, you've got the gun debate, you've got whatever it is in Syria, whatever it is, there are people usually with pretty rabid views on either side. Then there's this whole segment of the population who knows a little bit, but they're either a little, you know, trepidatious of getting in or they just don't like the kind of combative environment. My show is about saying everybody can express their viewpoint as long as it's done in a respectful way. And so you give people the opportunity and the time. You know, it's a 2-hour show, so people have the time to go on for 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then when they're finished there, then they go, and then this other person goes. And what you end up with is me kind of really exploring issues in an unbiased way from people of all sides so that we can all kind of not just attack that person for their views, but really understand what's behind their views. And then, so it's not a persuasion show. It's a self-expression and
kind of like a Larry King sort of show. Would that be a good way of describing it?
Yeah, but there's a dynamism to it. You know, we have callers that can come in, and it's, you know, my personality and Mr. King's personality is a little bit different.
You have a pulse, for example.
Listen, the man is a legend in
How many checks have you bounced?
Right. Well, no, and I've only been married just the one time, but that's just my, you know, why, see, this is totally off the spine of how the courteous, respectful dialogue.
Oh, come on, it's talk radio. We're supposed to call each other Nazis and communists, right?
Well, I'll take the communist one because that's what everybody calls an actor from Hollywood. But no, I think people realize that. I mean, I had Noam Chomsky on the show.
Wow.
And also Michael Medved. You know, and both came away from it with really complimentary things to say about how it went.
Now, what do you get from your listeners? Because when people, for example, order tea, they order iced tea or they order hot tea. Nobody orders lukewarm tea. When you don't have the strong point of view and you try to, you get all sides.
It's not that there's no strong point of view. It's that we
don't want... Not a predictably partisan point of view. Is that a way of...
On the anger meter, we're looking for 7s and 8s.
Okay.
If you're 9 or 10, we're going to say, hey, jump off the phone, take a walk. When you've calmed down and you're ready to like really, you know, share your point of view, call back and we'll let you really get out what you want to say.
Is it a shock to the system, though, for the audience? Because they're not used to hearing this, though.
The audience in the first, you know, period of time, we got about 12 to 15,000 people that listen in. Actually, our Syria episode, a special edition we did on that when President Obama was trying to get the congressional support for his limited attack idea in Syria, we had 24,000 people. So I was really proud of that number because it's hard to find us, and it's politics. You know, I'm an actor, and this is a political show. So
that's more people than sit at the Staples Center to watch the Lakers play.
Not before Kobe got hurt. It's half as many. But I don't know what the capacity of Staples is. But no, the fact is that a lot of people, I wouldn't say there were crickets when I would open up the phone lines, but you know, when somebody would call in, they almost don't believe that it's true, that you're not going to hammer away at them. Or, you know what I mean? Like, because somebody will call in, and on most shows, I was listening to a show last night, William, or something like that, and he's just a guy who just talks about how black, you know, the black population in America is totally deceived, and the people, they're operating against their own self-interest, and so you had an African-American political analyst on the show who was a very strong conservative, but it was so one-sided and repetitive. It was like they're not actually having a conversation. They're trying to encode in the mind of their listeners.
That's what a lot of it is, though. Like, for example, and I don't want to attack anyone personally here, but you watch, for example, the Dr. Laura program or listen to it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people love that show. She was commercially probably the second most successful talk show host in the country for decades, right behind Rush. But to me, it's the same show every day. It's the callers calling up with the same questions and her hammering them in the same way. And
it's something else too. You know when you listen to the news radio on your way into work, and they go to the weather, and the weather said, "Just give me a weather report, a nice little something from Los Angeles, say at 7:30 in the morning." Let me hear you do it. Ready?
It's 7:30 in the morning?
And you're like, I'm driving to work and I'm not sure if it's sunny. I don't know. With Laura, you know, she's really, really, really intelligent woman, and obviously all the things you said about her success, but it's a pitch. It's a pitch. People realize that if they hit a certain tone, I'm talking about musically, audibly, if they hit a certain tone, it affects people, and then they just drive that tone the whole time.
Judge Judy's like that too.
Judge Judy is like that, and my tone is a lot more, it's focused, it's intense, it's friendly, it's listening, it's that kind of thing. For them, I literally think it's like people are trying to encode in the mind of the listeners a certain pattern of, even if it's just words. You know, the Ayers sympathizers or this kind of thing, you know, where then you sit down in an airport and you're next to somebody like I was yesterday, and they go, oh, blah, 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 blah. And you kind of go, wow, I don't even know if that's an original thought or if they're just like out of, you know, a kind
repeating
of
something they've heard.
Yeah, just sort of Pavlovian response. So what I'm trying to encourage people to do is bring in their thinking, but really their thinking, not their bias. You know, but
isn't a lot of this just bias confirmation? If you're a Republican, you watch Fox. If you're a liberal, you watch MSNBC, and you've got a guy in a suit telling you what you believe is the truth. And
I think so.
I
think that some of the journalists on some of those stations they try. I think they really try to be as fair as they can. I'm not talking about Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity. I mean,
like a Shepard Smith or a Luke Russert.
Shepard Smith, I've noticed, has sort of gone a little bit more the way of the you know, I think he tries to. I used to really like watching Shepard Smith, but I got a little disappointed sometimes with his reporting. But my point is that a lot of my listeners think I'm a Democrat, and a lot of my listeners think I'm a Republican, because what I do is whenever somebody comes on talking, I take not a contrarian point of view, but a sort of a curiosity, investigative point of view. I want to know what they, you know, like, why do you think that way? So, you know, okay, it is the Second Amendment. You know, you say that's why I was put in the Constitution to do this. So, you know, and what you get to pretty quickly is the full complement of what people's idea is, and then very quickly the limitations. Like you get to the place where they don't have enough research or knowledge. And by the way, my research and knowledge is like, you know, I mean, I know a lot, but I get these people on the phone or on the, you know, interview, and I don't, you know, I really want to learn from them.
Well, that's the beauty of radio too, because you have the time to explore that. When you're doing a hit on television, if you're gonna be promoting this everywhere, you're gonna do some of the morning shows. Sometimes you have 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you've got someone else on there with you, you can't really explore anything.
I'm thinking about the 3-minute pitch for the show. Like, it's about politics, but people speaking nicely. Go to Vox Populi.
Now let's check the weather. Give me the sounder. All right. Now you were a big star in the movies. You are a big star in the movies. Rudy, Lord of the Rings, the Goonies. I'm a radio guy. I've been a radio guy my whole career. In the food chain of the entertainment industry, you've got movie people here. You've got the guy at Venice Beach who is on the roller skates with the accordion who's here. You have radio people who are here. Then you have Kenny G who's here. Why are you wanting to do radio?
Well, I think it's good to slum it once in a while. Because it's the place to do. You know, I'd wanted to do a talk show 20 years ago and 15 years ago and 10 years ago, and every time I would meet with my agents and managers and publicists and business managers and lawyers and, you know, website guy and like everybody that you in your life when you're an actor and you've had some success, and so you have kind of a team around you, and I'd say I want to do a political show. I want to call it like Civic Duty, and it was like I shot them up with some sort of a sleeping pill. And, you know, like they just couldn't get with it. When I would talk to my DC friends and I'd say I want to do a political radio show, they're like, you know, you're not inside. You're not inside. So now this technology has come along where I can sort of say, there's enough people who know me and care about Rudy and Lord of the Rings and Goonies and 50 First Dates and Encino Man and the ones that I hear about all the time when I'm out in public. I'm 24. That I can get my message to them on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. They'll know that I'm here. And it's great to go on this show. By the way, this show came so hotly recommended from the hip. When I did my Kickstarter campaign, I launched it. I did it very prematurely. I launched it when the government shut down because I just thought this is a moment where it's on the spine, where the country is focused on the fact that politicians don't communicate well together. My show's all about communication, and it's it's appalling that they did that. So I launched my campaign, and I didn't know jack turkey about Kickstarter. Well, people just came out of the woodwork to offer help. And I was clever enough to accept their help. And then as I was at one of these fireside chats at this tech thing with all these kind of people, and they're like, you know what you got to do? You know what you got to do? Next generation. You got to do next generation. I was like, all right, how do you find next generation?
Are you sure they just didn't confuse us with a pornography company? Because with the internet, that happens
I went there
sometimes.
First. And I think we probably have bigger reach on that show, but I thought this was more in the spirit of what I'm talking about.
Now, there are actors who've tried radio before. We
Yeah.
had Al Franken, who did
Yeah.
it on Air America. Dennis Miller, who's done it with Westwood One, now Dial Global. Do you think, and those guys had
I'm just going to
successful
try and get up
national
to
shows.
a roller skater on Venice level. That's going to be my...
Were any of them, I don't know, did you listen to the shows? Were you a fan of those shows? Is that something that influenced you at all?
I regret that I never went on Air America to get interviewed by Al Franken. That would have been something, because at that time, my age, that would have been really edifying for me. I mean, I don't know what it would have been for the audience, but I would have loved it. Dennis Miller, when he had his show, I went on his show, and at the end of it, he signed a football for me, and he said, I'll write speeches for you when you run for president, Dennis Miller. And so I was like, I still have that football sitting right in my office. So he's gone really in an extreme perspective, which I find sometimes entertaining and sometimes disappointing. But Al Franken became a United States Senator, for Pete's sake. So I watch his testimony or his hearings. I'm a big C-SPAN guy. Mm-hmm. I watch his hearings.
You're the guy that watches.
I'm the one. And
big fan of Canadian Parliament?
Canadian Parliament. Everybody watches Speaker's questions in England, but Canadian Parliament. Yeah, I like watching the Canadian Premier do press conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah, because because I work a lot in Canada. Right now, I'm starring in Guillermo del Toro's The Strain on his best-selling vampire trilogy novels that he wrote. And it'll be on FX in June or something. But so, I'm doing this Kickstarter campaign, which is I don't know what's going to happen. We finish Wednesday night at 5 Pacific Coast time, and I'm going to we're at 49. They're putting there 49,469.
There you go.
Hopefully, by the time you guys put this out, there will be over 50,000. 60,000 is our stretch goal. So
well, let's go ahead and take a look at that. In fact,
yeah.
you have a Kickstarter campaign
Yeah.
to try to get an app, try to get a booker. Let's go ahead and take a look at that.
The push of a button, we can live stream the show. Somebody can push another button and call in real time and participate as a caller in the show, or they can type in a comment and send that to the show as it's happening. I also like the idea that they can we can search through the archived shows by subject matter, by the guest or issue, topic, whatever, and a couple of other really cool features. So I just want to say that the point of this project update is to say it's all about the app. Get the app. Get the app.
That's a little motivational speech
Could you see the camera was moving a little bit?
Yeah.
Because it was my 11-year-old daughter holding up the iPhone doing it. We're grassy rootsy, pal. It's all about, just getting the message out there.
Now, what exactly is Kickstarter? If someone's unfamiliar with that, and what
I
exactly
figured
is it that
everybody
you're
would
trying
know.
to do?
Kickstarter is, they changed the law. They changed the law, the securities law. If I wanted to go, it used to be to raise money for my creative project, I could go to a certain number of unaccredited investors, so you could ask people who only had a certain amount of money. But then if you really wanted to raise money, you had to go to accredited investors, meaning they had to have a net worth of over $1 million. Well, all of us, which is great to protect grandma from an unscrupulous, filmmaker who just takes her for her entire estate. But it also means that the population of people that I can go to for my independent film, for example, was just whittled down to nothing.
Right.
Well, now they changed the law. I don't know exactly how to describe what they did, but it was they released a paper or something like that. And so as of about 1.5 years ago, you could do crowdsourcing, which is you can go to the public and you can say, hey, if you want to back my show, not invest in my show, That's securities language for I have a continuing financial interest in the show, and not donate to my show. That means that you might have a tax write-off like you would if it was a 501c3. But no, I want to back your show, which just means give you money. We don't actually give it. You offer these rewards in exchange. So somebody...
What are they?
Oh, there's so many. We've got some great ones. I've been telling people, we offer great stuff that you can't get anywhere else in the world, but only in the next 2 days. Actually, probably by the time this thing airs, only in the next day. So there's things like autographed DVDs. There's a limited edition print of certain things. There was a lot of Twitter. People wanted like a tweet and a follow, and somebody wanted Facebook friends. So for $20, you get a tweet, or for $40, I don't know exactly the numbers, but you can be an in-studio host. You can actually purchase a spot next to me.
And those are popular. There's a burger place that's being shut down right near my house because the owner of the land wants to use it for something else.
Yes.
But it's a family. It's like a middle-class family.
Yes.
And they want to continue the business,
Yes.
but they can't go out and buy a building because it's the west side. It's
Yes.
expensive.
That's exactly
So they said, all right, here's the deal. We're doing a Kickstarter campaign, and if you donate, I don't know how many thousands of dollars, you can have a hamburger named after you. We find a new spot.
Well, this one, my show, the slight different thing with my show is that person can pay, I think it's like right now in the next 24 hours, if they do it for $500, they can choose the topic for the show. So, we're talking about a lot of issues.
So if I want you to talk about why airline food is so bad,
yeah,
I donate X number of dollars.
You pledge. Yeah.
And then you will be talking about
If you pledge it, you
food.
become a backer.
Okay.
It's like at this point, we have almost 600 backers, almost 600 producers of the show.
Right.
Some at $1. Right. So, but yes, then you could call and say, talk about why airline food is so bad, and as long as it's appropriate, I scan it for appropriateness. Then, and if it's not appropriate, then we give you, you can come up with another one. Or you keep coming up, or we'll keep giving you options. We'll learn a little bit about you and stuff. Or for $1,500, you can come and actually sit in the chair and help drive the conversation. I mean, you can call in if it's your topic on your show, but there's something else to sitting there, letting people see your face. It's an opportunity. I think it's a really, really good opportunity for people to focus on their own causes. I talked to a guy with autism, whose son has autism, and he was like, "Ooh, that's a good idea for me to focus on, get you to focus." Not that we wouldn't do it anyway, but he's locking it in.
And people who are obsessed with radio, and I'm one of these people that's obsessed with radio. People love the mechanics of it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of times people ask me to come sit in the studio to watch the radio show. And I think, well, it's just a guy sitting in front of a microphone.
No, it's not.
But there's really a lot more to it.
No, it's not. There's like 50 people standing out there working computers and working phone lines and graphics and the internet and producing and callers and everything else like that. I would pay. How much do I have to pay? I want to see that.
There's one person who has their entire job is to just sit there in front of a bowl of M&Ms and pick out all the red ones for Michelle Fields. That's all they do.
Well, for $50, I'll create a new reward. You can get all of Michelle Fields' discarded red M&Ms. Kidding.
Now, what's the website if people want to get hold of it?
Well, we made it easy. You can go to Kickstarter. And by the way, the other great thing about Kickstarter is, everybody with their project, from a painting they want to do, guys with garage bands who want to make DVDs. One guy came up with a shovel that bends and locks in. There's, like the burger, saving the burger joint. There's thousands of projects out there. And what happens is every person who has an extra dollar becomes a patron. So it used to be like in the Medici family, or when it came time for any of the Renaissance painters, the only reason we see the fantastic Renaissance painters that have come down through time is because they had wealthy patrons. So now the common man becomes a patron.
And people have skin in the game, too.
Yeah, absolutely. They know it. They're driving the product. And you might think, well, my vote doesn't count, right? First of all, you never know what district, what county your vote's going to actually, where there's going to be some issue and your vote will truly have mattered in a national election. But if you go on to the Kickstarter website and look at the metrics that show you who donates why and how, every donation, certainly on a project like this where, that isn't like $1 million. A lot of them are for $1,500, but this was for $30,000. We've made it to 50. We're almost 50. We're desperate to get to 60 before the end of the day tomorrow. So anyhow, we made it easy though. Instead of going to Kickstarter, and you can look around other things and plug in Vox Populi or Sean Astin, you can just go to startthevox.com. startthevox.com. It'll take you right to the right page at Kickstarter, and you go from there.
And you know, I think this is something that people of our generation are used to now, because one of my favorite shows, two of my favorite shows, House of Cards and Orange is the New Black. And you only get those shows on Netflix. So you got to have skin in the game. You got to pay that $16 a month or whatever it is that they charge. So you have access to those shows, and they're addictive. But the same thing is true with Showtime. Same thing is true with Dexter and Nurse Jackie and, you know, all those other shows that people like, where you have to pay specifically for them.
The other side of that coin is, like, that's because you're proactive and you're going there. A lot of people receive television, you know, public television or radio. It's free. And so they want to experience it that way. But then the same people that do that, when they're interviewed about the screaming matches and the you know, the partisan politics that have become so divisive that it stops ability to get anything done, and they say, well, you know, it shouldn't be like that. We should, you know, TV's gotten so bad. Well, the only way it's going to get better, the only way, is if you, with your dollars, invest in shows that do that. Otherwise, they can't survive.
And you know what? I think that Netflix and Showtime is making the networks better, because they're looking at all these shows. They're looking at the quality of these shows, HBO, and they know that they're the competition, and they got to keep up with them.
Well, people are getting more sophisticated. I mean, when I was a kid, it used to be, you know, the studio were these suits that you tried to make your movie in spite of, or, you know, your TV show in spite of. Now, they're pretty sophisticated, pretty smart people, and they're also very responsive to the public. Not as responsive to the public as anybody with a Kickstarter campaign. Anybody with a Kickstarter campaign will literally hear someone say, I wish you offered a meet and greet. I put up an award for a meet and greet. I wish you would come to my city and like do a visit at my town. I'll travel for this level award. I'll do that. So, and then, you know, those people, so just being responsive to them, you develop a relationship. I email them directly, the backers. I'm like in a conversation with 600 people, 500 people.
Right. You don't get that with the networks.
You don't get it with the networks, and when you watch a show, you don't have the immediate sense that I made House of Cards with my dollar. So you can sit back, right, and when House of Cards becomes a hit, you can go, I knew that before anybody else did. I helped make Vox Populi a hit radio show. And when some big, you know, every show, every single episode, there's a potential to make news. Depending on who we get on the phone. I wanted to have John Kerry on the phone. I had an aide in his hand, an aide with a phone in his hand when Secretary Kerry was walking between his car and his plane to go to Russia, and because I knew him through a contact, and he had the phone in his hand. He's like, I'm going to try and do it, hang in there, and he just about had it, and he's like, he couldn't do it. The guy was on with anyone of 180.
Well, maybe he has my carrier and the call just dropped. That's what seems to happen.
But my point is that any show has the opportunity to make news. And when we do, if you've backed the show, then you can sort of go like, I helped make that happen.
Give me the website one more time.
It's startthevox.com. Thank you, John, so much. This has been my favorite interview in the history of the planet ever. Ever.
Such a liar.
I love it. No, I love it. I'm passionate. I don't know if you can tell, but I got passion on my side. StartTheVox.com! Oh, people got to check out my current video of Start the Fox. I can start the Vox. What does the Vox say? It's pretty funny.
We'll check that out too. Sean Astin, thanks so much for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
We'll do it again. And you can find Sean Astin's Kickstarter campaign at startthevox.com, and you can follow him on Facebook and Twitter to be updated about his show and other projects. I'm John Phillips for Next Generation TV. Thanks for watching.
You know, you got a voice for radio.
Well, thank you.
You had that very